Welcome back, people. This is the second part of the Spaceball tutorial. So let's get right into it. No more of my babble. So we're gonna build the rest of the elements inside the Spaceball, and we're gonna do it using the same texture technique that we used that we just learned for the pink stuff. So let's go to our layers. Let's create a new layer. We'll call it green because we're going to do the green first. Remember, we're moving back to front. We're going to create that green blob that was sort of in the back here. We're going to recreate that. And here's another tool that I want to show you how to use. We're going to grab our curvature tool, which is kind of like the pen tool. It's right below it. It's like the pen tool, and it's got the little whatever that is coming out of it, that little curly Q. Then we're gonna make sure we're on our green layer. We're gonna click over here, and we're gonna click here. We're gonna give it. See how the curvature tool it has sort of this predetermined trajectory that you can kind of mess with. Just mess with it. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing. Again, make it your own. Do whatever you want to do. Find your own way. All right, so there's our green blob, but it's not green yet. So for your convenience, I made the little, I expanded our color palette, which is going to be in the file when you download it. So these will be here for your convenience. So we're going to take this green blob and we're going to make it a gradient. So we're going to come down here over to our fill and stroke, and we're going to click the gradient again. And it is a gradient. It's a subtle gradient. It's a pink gradient, as you can see over here in our gradient palette right there. We're gonna recolor it the greens. So we're gonna take our light green. We're gonna start with our dark green. Actually, we're gonna take the dark green. We're gonna drag it from our swatches, and we're gonna add it right there. And then we're gonna take the light green. We're gonna click and drag that into our lighter portion, and we have our gradient applied. But we're actually going to tighten this up a little bit, and we're gonna we want to reverse. We're going to reverse the gradient because we want it to go light to dark. So there we go. So we want to have remember our light source is coming from here, coming from the top left. So we're gonna, there we go. Something like that. Doesn't need to be that big. There we go. Another reason that we're doing these gradients is kind of nice. Obviously the white textures are gonna pop a little bit better on the darker values of the gradient. Now, remember last time we expanded our pink layer. We just clicked this little arrow right here to expand it. And we want to duplicate this. So we're gonna click our little selected art box right there. And we're gonna hold down Alt. We're gonna click on what's called the path right here. We're gonna click on the element itself. And we're gonna hit Alt and drag. And you're going to get that little plus sign. So make sure see that little blue bar that's highlighting when we drag over our shape. We want to make sure that little blue line is highlighting, because that means it's going to put it on top. Or you can do what I taught you last time. You can hit Command C, Command F. That's going to copy it and paste it on top of itself, if you remember that. So let's apply our cute little texture that we did last time. So it should be in your swatches. once you recolor the artwork, it automatically adds it to your swatches. So if you look back in your swatches, you have what look like just plain white. But you'll notice they're towards the bottom of your swatches. It's not actually white. If you mouse over it, it says, you know, Gravel Beach 4 or Gravel Beach 2. It's just the edited, recolored version of the texture that we added before. So if you can notice that it just added the default again, so it's really small. So I think we can just use our eyedropper tool. Just hit I. Yeah. So if you just hit I and click on our pink ellipse that has the texture applied to it, it's gonna pick up the values that we added to that particular texture, the 150 that we scaled it up. So yeah, that's good. That's where we want it. Now we're gonna add our mask. So we're gonna select. Let's go back and select our green gradient blob. And then we'll just hit Command. Actually, you know, we're just gonna Alt drag it. So we're gonna work in our layers today. So just click the layer, make sure your artwork is selected, and then hold Alt, and then drag it up above the texture path that we just made. Now, obviously, that's on top of our texture. So let's go ahead and add let's make it that black and white gradient. Because remember how masks work. So we're going to go ahead and click and drag our black value into our darker portion of the gradient here. And then we're going to grab the... actually, no, it's going to be opposite. Duh. See how I already forgot that? Our white value. And then we're going to have our black value where the lighter green was. Because we want our textures to kind of be applied to the darker areas, because the way this baseball kind of looks is the light source is kind of making the white texture less visible. So that's the way I think it's working in my mind. So let's just go ahead and see how this looks. Let's. So now we have our black and white gradient that we're going to use as our path. So we're going to make sure we have the path that we just created selected with the gradient, and then we're going to shift and click the textured path below it that we just made, and we're going to make our mask again. So we're going to go back to transparency, and then we're going to hit make mask. So yeah, we have our kind of our subtle gradient going on over here. But I think it's kind of showing a little bit too much, so we're going to release, and we're going to go back and let's grab remember, hit G for gradient. And we're going to move this, we're going to have some more black over here. We don't want that much revealed as we had just then. Oh, excuse me. Coffee's giving me indigestion. And I just want to make sure that this is 100% black. Because remember, if it's not 100% black, it's going to show some of the, which it's not. So you see how these sliders are kind of over to the color. That means it's not 100% black. So we're going to click right here. It's going to zero out the RGB values and make it complete black, which it did not apply. We have to make sure our gradient is actually selected. Okay, there we go. So that should be totally invisible. I actually just... Okay. Sorry about that. I accidentally had the wrong layer selected. I'm going to click here. Boom, boom, boom. G for gradient. Lord. G for gradient. There we go. Thank you, Illustrator. All right. Now, all right, we're gonna create our mask. transparency, make mask. There we go. It looks pretty good. Stop fussing with it for now. Now we're gonna create a clipping mask of this green blob because obviously all this out here shouldn't be showing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come down here and grab our pink ellipse, and we're gonna alt drag this circle above. We're gonna keep it in our green layer palette, and we're going to put it above everything in the green palette because we want to clip everything below it. So we're going to have this selected. We're going to select these two below it, and then we're going to hit Command 7. And that, what Command 7 does, Command 7 makes a clipping mask. It's still in there. It didn't cut anything. As you can see, the shape is still in there. So if you want to get back into it and move it around, because you can see if you grab it now, it's just going to move the whole clipping mask. So if you want to get back into it, just double click. And there you go. We have our shapes are re-accessible. So just keep that in mind. All right. So we have our green portion. Let's go ahead and do the same thing as we just did, but we'll do it with the blue portion. It doesn't have to be exactly this, but let's try to recreate this the best we can. Let's get try to have a little control over learn a little control over our curvature tool. So we're going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it blue. There we go. And we're going to come down here, sort of go like this, and then go. It's filling our shape with the texture, which not a big deal. We'll click up here, and then just kind of get a feel for how it works, how it sort of how the curvature tool works. Let's kind of slide it over and put it in the foreground a little bit more. All right, now let's select our blue, which is our little snowflakes there, and then we're gonna hit the eyedropper tool, just I on the keyboard, and then we're gonna select our light blue value over here. It looks pretty good, pretty close to what the original was. Now we're gonna make this a gradient again, as well as we did with the green. So hit the gradient, and then remember we want to drag our. I'm going to teach you how to add all these colors to your. You see how I have a little group? Well, I have two groups. I have the light. See, if you look in our palette over here in the upper left, we have the light values and the dark values for the gradients. And as you'll see, I have two folders here, two color groups for the light and the dark values. So we'll get into that in a second. I'll show you how to add the colors to your swatches. So we're gonna go over here. We have our gradient selected, and we're gonna go ahead and grab our dark blue value. I'm gonna add it to the dark side of the moon. It's kind of a moon shape. Kind of fits. Kind of works, right? All right. That's not a super obvious gradient, which is fine. It's just a subtle gradient, so you may not notice a huge difference in color values here. We're going to hit G for our gradient tool, and we are linear. We want to be radial, so we're going to click and drag. Kind of starting to see subtle. It's subtle. Let's actually make this dark blue. You can go back over here and kind of mess with the colors in your color picker. Just make it a little darker, just so it adds a little more contrast. Let's slide this over. Okay. After we fiddled with it a little bit, we got it where we like it. Now we're going to repeat the same process. We're going to come over here in our blue layer, and then hit Alt, click and drag. Just going to duplicate it. We're going to use our eyedropper tool. We're going to grab our texture from the pink layer. so we don't have to go in there and rescale it and all that stuff. And then we're gonna make our mask layer. So Alt, drag. So all these are gonna have 3 layers, right? We're gonna have the base with the color, we're gonna have the texture, and then we're gonna have our mask over the texture. So, okay, so we have this selected. We're gonna go back to our gradient. And remember, we want black and white. Black and white. And then just want to make sure this is total black, which it's not, because I keep grabbing the wrong black value from my swatches. By the way, total black is up here. This is by default in your swatches. You have none, registration, which is for printing, and then you have white, and then you have black. This is total black. This is 000. Total black. So we want to make sure we're grabbing that and not this one, like I keep doing, like a dummy, like a noob. Yeah, let's just make sure our, yeah, okay, it's zeroed out. Okay. Now remember, what's black is not visible, what's white is visible. So we're gonna, you want to maintain the same sort of effect. We just want to have the texture coming in over here on the right bottom portion of our little shapey-do here. And we're going to make our mask. So with that selected, we're going to shift click on this layer, and we're going to go back to transparency, make mask. Repetition is always good. The more you do this, the more you're going to remember it. So that's why I keep going through the same steps. I know it's a little redundant. So now we're going to go back to remember we grabbed our pink ellipse here. We're going to alt drag that to the top because we want to clip everything, and then we're going to select everything below it by hitting shift. Click these little boxes, and then remember Command 7. I actually accidentally hit 8 in there too, but yeah, Command 7 is going to clip everything below it. And then we're going to do it a third time. We're going to make our third little blob for the purple value. So we're going to start a new layer. Purple. This also is going to get you in the habit of naming your layers, which is always a good thing to make sure your layers are named. Take that extra second and name your layer, because that extra second is going to save you like 20 minutes down the road, especially in Photoshop. We'll talk about that someday. All right, let's go back and grab our curvature tool. Now we're going to look over here. It's kind of this little kidney bean thing coming in over there. I'm not sure how much I even like that shape, so I might even get a little funky over here and sort of maybe I'll just do a little sphere. Maybe we'll just keep it simple. The blue is crazy enough, so let's just try this. All right, let's do that. Looks good. Remember, grab our gradient. Just apply a gradient to it. And then we're going to take our dark purple value, drag it here, and our light purple value, drag it there. Break it down. All right, so let's hit G for our gradient tool and see how we're going to reverse it, because we want the light coming in. Let the light shine in. All right, this is pretty good for contrast. I don't think we need to fiddle with the colors much. There we go. That looks good. That's good. We're happy. We like that. All right, now expand our layer again. Select our purple, blob, alt, drag, eyedropper, eye, boom. We got our texture. And then we can actually just alt drag our texture layer. Alt drag that, it's the third layer. We're adding a gradient to it. What color? Black and white. The real black this time. We're doing the real black. We're going to put our black where our light purple was, and then we're going to put our white where our dark purple was. And we're going to hit our gradient tool. That might be pretty good. Slide it over a little bit. All right, we looking good. We feeling good. Shift, click. Make sure these two are selected. Transparency, make mask. Boom. There it is. But remember, this purple is actually below the blue. So we're going to reorganize that in a second. Let's actually, because I'm nitpicky, let's actually go back and kind of take this gradient. This is good to redo again too, because if you're not happy with the mask gradient you just made, remember to go back and release the mask. Just make sure you're in the transparency tab, release the mask, and we want to actually make this, we want to make the texture a little less prominent. So we're going to go like this. I just noticed our masks are 75% opaque. All right, now we're going to go back and we're going to make sure our gradient and our texture path are both selected. We're going to go back to transparency, make mask. That's pretty good. All right, we'll leave it like that for now. Now again, we're gonna. You can go back in and fiddle with stuff later. I don't want to waste your time by getting too crazy in here, but which I tend to do because I'm super OCD. Again, we're gonna drag our pink circle back up, and then we're gonna select everything below it. Command 7. Once again, there we go. We have all of our shapes. Now let's go and reorganize this, because remember the purple was below the blue here. So the purple was kind of below the blue but on top of the green. And then we're going to go in and add these little gradation shadows. And we're even going to do the, we'll do the force field, and we'll do the little shimmer. Shimmer. All right. So we want to take our purple layer and drag it between the blue and the green. So make sure, you see how when you're dragging a layer, when you go over a layer like this, it highlights the whole layer, and then when you're going between, you get that little blue pinstripe there, the little blue bar. That's what you want, because if the whole layer is highlighted, that means it's going to drop it inside the layer, and it's going to put it in that layer, which we don't want to do. We want to put it between the green and the blue. So just release it once you have that little stripe there. Now let's go in and let's make those little gradation shadows that we saw over here. As you can see, they're just kind of black to nothing. So I'm going to show you how to make a gradient with a transparent value in it, which is pretty easy. Let's do the purple first, because the green doesn't have a shadow behind it. So let's do the purple. And the easiest way to do this is to drag your purple blob right here, your very bottom value, and then Alt and drag and put it below the purple, because it's going to be below everything. And then we're going to go up here. You could just hit Shift and drag, just make it a little bit bigger. Make sure you hit Shift if you're going to do it this way. Actually, let's just do that for today. I'll talk about offsetting paths later on. Just for the purposes of this, we'll just make Shift and scale it up a little bit bigger. But actually, let's make sure we're doing it uniformly across the, globally. So we're gonna do it with math. We're gonna transform and we're gonna scale. We're going to do it 110%. That's pretty good. So yeah, 110%. Okay. And then we're gonna, it already has a gradient to it. So let's do, so this is another little tip for you. When you're doing like a black to nothing, a black to zero opacity, make sure that both colors are the same, because it's going to add some weird colors in between. So if, for example, if we do black to white, and then we make the white, because we want this white portion to be transparent, and we want the black to be opaque here. So so we, with our white value selected, we go down to opacity and make it 0. Now you'll see, you kind of see there's a little bit of white in there. And that's because this is going from black to white. So there's all these like mid values when the color is switching to white. So we don't want that. We want to double click this. We want to make this black. We want it to go black to black. And that way we can see we have this nice sharp shadow in there. There's no muddying. It's not muddying it up by going black to white and creating these grays in between. So let's go ahead and kind of move this opaque slider over a little bit. That looks good. Now let's select it, and you'll notice over here it's pretty subtle. So we're going to turn it down a little bit. So we're going to grab the transparency, and we're going to take it down to like 50%. 50% looks good. Let's keep that. All right. There we go. We have our first shadow. Now let's go to our blue layer, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to repeat the process. Let's grab our bottom blob here, our bottom layer. Alt, click and drag. And then we have our blue blob. Let's grab our eyedropper tool and just click on that gradient that we just made. Now grab our select tool again, and then shift. Remember, we hit shift and we scaled it up. Actually, no, you know what we did do? We did it with math. So we did transform, scale, 110%. Okay, but it didn't. See, this is why I like using offsetting the path. For a shape like this, you know what, we're going to do offset path here. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. We're going to hit Command Z to undo what we just did. Okay, so let's re-add that. Actually, let's do the offset path first. So let's make sure we have our bottom new blob that we just made, and we're going to go up to Object, Path, and then we're going to go to Offset Path over here. I have a dog having a nightmare behind me. Let's try 24. 30. We're gonna do 32 pixels offset. That looks pretty good. We're gonna click OK. Now, as you can see, instead of scaling it, what offset path does is it takes the path and it just around all sides it applies a uniform scale. Because when you're scaling something, it doesn't quite. You'll notice this when you get to more complex paths. You'll see what I mean. It's kind of hard to explain, but just keep that in mind. So let's hit I, and we'll grab all the work we did with our path over here, and looks okay. It's just a little funky, punky. Let's just kind of, I know this doesn't really, how did we have it in the original? Yeah, it kind of came from this side to that side. So that looks pretty good. Again, you can mess with it on your own. So all right, we got the shadows. We got our blobs inside. Now let's do the shine, because the force field is really just a white to opaque gradient. That's pretty simple. So let's do the shine, because this might take a little bit longer. So a quick way to do it, we're gonna make a new layer, call it the shine, or just shine. Let's grab our ellipse tool, Alt, Shift, and drag, and we're gonna actually put it inside this layer. So you see how the whole shine layer is highlighted? There you go. Now it's inside of our layer, as you can see. Now, we're gonna use our direct selection tool, which is just A on your keyboard, and you're gonna get this white cursor. And what direct selection does, it allows you to directly select either endpoints or paths or both, but it lets you specify what you want to choose. So I want this from here to here on the circle. So you see the circle is made up of these four curves, obviously. So we want to hit A. We just want this left curve right here. We're going to lock everything. Let's lock all of our everything below, just so we don't mess anything up. Keep our background layer locked. So with our direct selection tool, we're going to click and drag right here. Oh, I locked our ellipse. Now you see how these two control handles just came out? That means we have just this arc selected. Now we're going to hit Command C, Command F. And you'll see, now let's select our ellipse. We don't need it anymore. We're just going to delete our ellipse. So as you'll see, we just have this arc selected right here. So with that selected, as you can see, there's three pieces to the shine. So we're going to take this arc. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the fill, and we're going to add a stroke to it. So the way to do that is make sure you click on your fill over here, hit the little red slash, and then click on your stroke, and then we're going to make it white. So make sure you give it a white stroke, and then we're going to turn up the stroke weight. We're going to come up here, and right here next to stroke, these point value right here, this is the weight of your stroke. As you see, the higher the number goes, the thicker the stroke goes. We're actually going to make it a little bit thicker. Do 28. We're good with that. Let's do 28. Let's roll with it. All right, now we're gonna make 3 copies of this because there were 3 parts of the shine over there. So you can either Alt drag, or just with it selected, just hit Command C, Command F, and then Command F again. So now we have 3. All right, now we're gonna hide the top 2, and we're just gonna select our bottom one, our bottom path. Now come over here and grab your scissors, or hit C on your keyboard, but click the scissors, and we're going to cut this up. Now we're making the top one right now, so it's a decent size. So we're going to cut it right about here. Now when you use your scissor tool, you need to be on the path. Think of it like a string. You want to cut the string. So boom. Now you see what this did. Once you use the scissor tool, it just made 2 paths. So it made a new one, and it put it. So we want this part right here, and we don't need this part that it just made. So we're going to delete that. So now we have our top path, and then we're gonna reveal our little middle one here, this little circle in the middle here. Now we could just make a circle, but let's just do it the right way. So we have our middle path selected. That's going to be the one in the middle. And let's just make sure that I'm actually going to bring this up here and change the color so I know where it is and where it ends. Oops, that's the wrong one. So this is the path that we just made. I'm going to take it and put it on top. And I'm actually going to change the stroke color just so I know where it is, so I don't cut beneath it when I use the scissors on the next path. All right, so we know where that one is. We want our middle path to be kind of here, from here to here, we'll say. So let's grab our scissor tool. We'll give it a little snip, snip, snippy right there. And right here, it's pretty small. So again, we're going to get rid of the excess string, if you will. And we're going to select that, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to change the stroke color. I just used my eyedropper tool to select. I dragged it on top and just made sure it was a blue so we can tell the difference. And then we're going to go over here. We're going to do the same thing. So C for scissors. Scissors doesn't make sense. C, scissors. And we're going to click here and here. We're happy with those. Get rid of the excess string. Now we're going to reselect these two and use our eyedropper tool and go back to our original white color. So now we have our three pieces of shine. And if you notice over here, again, they have rounded corners. So we're gonna select our paths. 1, 2, 3. By hitting Shift, we're gonna go up to Object, Path, and then we're going to Outline Stroke. So now we have 3 paths instead of 3 strokes. Now we're going to hit A, grab our direct selection tool again, and we're going to grab our little corner radius controls. And look at that. They all rounded. Now we're going to get a little funky. We're going to add our little transparency to the shine. So we're going to do what we did with similar to the black, the shadow over here. We're going to add our white to nothing gradient. So let's go ahead and make it a gradient. Now again, we want to go from the same color on each side. So we want to go from white to white and then make one of them opaque. So we're going to, transparent. Or opaque. One of them's opaque still. So grab white. And let's grab this one and just hit 0 opacity. Now, how did we have it over here? It was coming from the other way. So we're going to hit G for our gradient. And we're going to reverse it. Remember, this little icon right here reverses your gradient. So if you're trying to drag the white part and it's dragging the transparent part, you can just go ahead and reverse the gradient. This one's going to be a little baby gradient. Actually, let's make this one radial just for fun. Okay. Same thing here. Oops. Eyedropper tool. It's going to apply that gradient. G for gradient. There we go. Now we're going to turn down the transparency a little bit, soften it up. Transparency 70%. Let's go down to 60. There. Okay, so we have our nice little shine over here. We have our shadows, we have our blobs. Now let's do our force field. The force field is really simple. Let's just grab this ellipse tool. Let's make a new layer. Let's lock everything now that we're done with it. Let's make a new layer. We'll do a force field. Call it force field. We're going to put it between everything. And click and drag it down here, these need to be unlocked. Yeah, when you're trying to drag layers, make sure the ones you're messing with are all unlocked. You see how I couldn't put it between the pink circle and the background? It's because they were both locked. So it was saying, nay, you ain't doing that. So let's grab our ellipse tool. I keep calling it a tool. It's a shape, ellipse shape. And then we're going to hit Alt, which is going to copy it, and drag to force field layer. Now we're going to offset our path this time. We're going to be good. Object, path, offset path. 32 pixels looks good. Okay, hit OK. Now we want it to be white to nothing, right? So what has that value? Our little shimmer that we just made. Shine. So hit your eyedropper tool. Boom, look at that. It's almost where we want it. If we weren't picky OCD designers, we might leave it. But we're not. G for gradient tool. Boom. Boom. Let's turn it down a little bit more. This is very subtle. Don't be afraid to be subtle. Not everyone needs to be loud. All right, so let's lock everything. And now the very last part of this, bringing it home, is we're just going to add the texture to the background. So how do we do that? We're going to grab our background, Alt and drag. We're going to duplicate it. Eyedropper tool. Boom. It's way too bright. And we're going to take our texture, opacity, 25. 25% opacity. It's looking a little, I know it's the same size as everything else. You can scale it. You can remember how to transform and scale just the texture inside. Let's go to 120. Remember, see, we're transforming the object. See, if I click transform the object, you see how the texture layer got bigger? We don't want that. Make sure just transform patterns is selected. And then click OK. That's it. That's our Spaceball. I hope you learned a lot. I know it was super repetitive, but that helps hammer things home. The more you do things, the more you remember it, at least for me. I got a ton of stuff coming up, so feel free to subscribe. You know, I got some donut graphs here, and they're all free vectors, so they're all gonna be free to download. We got ooh, what's that? A Super Nintendo controller with texture? Yeah, we got some stuff coming. Oh, we got this little graphic. We got all kinds of stuff. So feel free to subscribe. I'm going to get better at this. I know I'm a little fumbly, but stay tuned and get out there and design. Toodaloo.